Introduce myself. I'll start with announcing our topic, um, exiting your business, M&A for lower middle market. The concept we're going to talk about today too is the nature of the marketplace and then how to prepare. So let's introduce ourselves. The slide change. Why is it not changing? Well, it'll come on in a second, but I'm Paul Visokey, and I'm president and founder of Stony Hill Advisors. Joining me today is Laurie Barkman, partner with me, and I'm in the Stamford, Connecticut office, and Laurie's in the Pittsburgh office. Here we go. Oh, I skipped over the slide now. That's all right. So this is it skipped over the agenda too.
No, it's okay. You're good.
Okay. This is the introduction is first. So we are a small business advisory firm, and we focus on helping business owners with businesses that generally are between 1 million and 5 million in revenue. Not a hard rule, but that's our target market. We have 7 people. I mentioned that the 2 of us were in different locations, and we have offices in New Jersey and Ohio, Connecticut, where I am, New York, and Pennsylvania. We have both the Pittsburgh office and the Philadelphia office. We have an office in Delaware, and we have people who are working in Maryland. Not anyone stationed there yet, but soon. And our primary market, our services we offer is, and these are not in order, but exit value coaching, M&A advice, business valuations, and intermediary transaction services to privately owned companies. We do both sell side and buy side. That's our primary business. The other businesses are part of our overall holistic approach to working with business owners. We're not just about the transaction. We're about preparing a business and helping business owners along the way. So here's the introductory slide I was looking for. So now you see our pictures. I have long-term experience in a variety of industries, technical industries, in the telecom world, and before starting Stony Hill, I was in the commercial lending, and I actually am a licensed agent, insurance agent as well. Let me turn it over to Laurie. She'll introduce herself.
Thanks, Paul. Excited to be here today. As he said, I'm a partner with Stony Hill. I love working from transition to transaction, as I like to say. I have been an operator in different businesses from small to big in various industries across my career. As a CEO, I went through a mergers and I should call it an acquisition. It was not a merger, where our privately held company was acquired by a Fortune 50. And it was an amazing experience. And it really got me passionate about seeing entrepreneurs through to their success, capture value, and transition and how they envision it. As he said, I'm based in Pittsburgh, and I work across various industries, various industry experience, and I host a podcast called Succession Stories, which we'll also talk about later. Thanks, Paul.
So our agenda today is a couple of things. We're going to talk about, and I'll specifically talk about business owner demographics and market dynamics. There's a lot to that story. I'm going to give you just a kind of a snapshot of the basis for our market and what we're trying to accomplish. Laurie's going to talk about exit value planning benefits and the whole process that we recommend people to go through to get their business ready for exit. And then we'll have some stuff at the end about the next steps. So I use this slide as a starting point to introduce the idea of the market we're focused on. And it is the baby boomer generation market, business owner marketplace. And it started, if you go back and the data we have here on this slide is from the Census Bureau and the Commerce Department. And it defines the growth rate of baby boomers over the last, 50, 60 years, 70 years, actually. And since World War II, in that first couple of years, you see at the beginning, they're around 45. there was a huge boom in the birth rate in this country. As we all know, we heard stories about people coming back from war, and people were having births consistently, and it went from about 2.8 million births per year to 4.3 in 1957, and that was the genesis of the baby boomers. It flattened out, and people kind of went back to normal, and for a while it dropped. It's growing again, but that's mostly now due to the overall population growth we've had in the country. So we're still having growth, but there's that opposite of the baby boomer bubble is the dip in the middle you see, which is the Gen X population, which is swamped by baby boomers, but they are likely the next generation of business owners. So again, and what that population growth then created was an opportunity for that growth of baby boomers to begin to become entrepreneurs. And they were the growth of businesses in this time period was partly due to severe recession between 1973 and 1975. It was the worst recession since the war, which is 30 years before that, and prior to 2008-9. It was severe. Those of us who remember, it was severe. So what happened was people couldn't find jobs in corporate America. They started their own companies. And as a result of that 10-year period, there were 250% more businesses that were started in that time period. There was actually the numbers go from 300,000 new business creations to 500,000 per year. So a 10-year period times 500,000, that's 5 million businesses started in that 10-year period. And they're all aging right now to a different state in the business ownership. So what happens next? The surge is coming to an end. There's a transition going on. The baby boomers, the earliest baby boomers turned 65 in 2010. And as of now, the youngest baby boomers are turning 60 this year. And that suggests that this 5 million businesses need a transition. No owner lives forever. So there's an opportunity in the market for somebody to buy these businesses. Now, the unfortunate part, there's not enough buyers. And that's the forecast is the value of businesses will eventually start dropping because there'll be no demand. So we call it the silver tsunami or age wave of baby boomer generation business owners. Of the 318 million people in this country at this time, 25% are in the baby boomer generation. And as I mentioned, there were 5.5 million businesses. And as they come to market, they're not necessarily going to be suited. Not only the Gen X, not enough individuals, but they're not really suited in the sense of the mentality of business ownership. Gen X are not inclined to be entrepreneurs in general. They are the doctors and lawyers and other people who are second generation from the baby boomers. They didn't have to start their own companies. So they are not, on the whole, a generation of entrepreneurs. And behind them, the Gen Y, they're as we all know, they're graduating from colleges with huge debt, and they don't have the savings or capital to acquire these businesses. So there's low tolerance for risk in the Gen Ys. The gig economies is just, they're not of the nature to buy these companies. So the only real population, the only people buying these companies right now are other competitors who are still growing their business, or private equity groups who have funding from other baby boomers who are using the private equity methodology to invest. So the limited partnerships in private equity are funding acquisitions, but they don't have enough money to buy all the businesses that are going to be on the market. And looking at the mentality and demographics of the baby boomer generation, I can state this for sure because I'm a baby boomer. work it drives us. It keeps us busy, keeps us going. I haven't retired because I don't want to. It's not because I can't. I've worked my whole life this way. So what I do is who I am, and my gratification and most baby boomers, the gratification of selling your business is delayed as likely as long as possible, but it can't go on forever. And as I said, the Gen X workers, they've changed jobs a lot. Their job is not them. They look for work-life balance. The future is uncertain for them. They're not entrepreneurs in general. And then, like I said, the gig workers, that part of our economy is just, they're not buying these companies, and they can't yet. And I don't know they will ever. So to summarize my portion of this presentation, the numbers are astounding. To sell 5 million businesses over the next 10 years, you have to sell 750 businesses every day. They're just not coming to market fast enough to fulfill that demand. And like I said, the buyers are not, they're sooner than dry up. So it's really important that you get your business ready. If the business is something you're using for your retirement purposes, that's your wealth, you need to be worried about having it get maximum value from when you're ready to sell. And what if there isn't sufficient equity? That's why we have a service we call exit value coaching. It can help you get your business ready. So, Laurie, you want to take over?
Yeah. So the topic of today, exit planning. What is exit planning? You can look at this diagram and say, oh my gosh, I have no idea. And that's okay. We have just a quick poll question for the audience. And we're wondering for all of you, what's the timing? Have you thought about exit? What does exit mean? Well, exit can mean a transition. It can mean a succession. It can mean you're selling the company. So just a quick poll to answer here. When do you plan to exit your business? And pick one, 10 plus years, 6 to 10, 2 to 5, within a year, or not applicable to you.
Okay, we got all, oh, let's still at it. There's more people still answering. Okay, 72 have answered. 2 to 5 years. That is actually a good time horizon for exit planning. It can take easily 2 years and oftentimes as much as 5 to get a business ready. And Laurie will talk more about that, but that's an interesting answer for everybody.
Yeah, the word exit, as we think about exit, what does that mean? For some, it might mean something negative. It might have a negative connotation. For some, it has a positive. I do a lot of group presentations and I talk to CEOs and entrepreneurs and I ask them, when I say the word transition, what does it mean to you? And it's important how you look at that. It's important, Paul, if you could flip forward for me, it's important to think about exit in a way that is a positive thing. And that's why we're here today talking about exit value planning, because when time is on your side, you have more time to create options for yourself. Having a plan, having goals, putting an effort together that's not just in our heads, it's on paper, it's agreed to, it's communicated. That's what's going to create value for you. And as Paul said, to maximize the value of your company. When you've worked so hard as an entrepreneur, you've worked for years, maybe you're in a family business, and at some point in the future, let's face it, we are all going to leave our company one day, boots on or boots off. So why not have a plan to create that value that you so deserve? And so that's what exit value coaching is. It's having a process to maximize the value of your company. It's understanding what risks you might be facing. What are those hidden pitfalls you might not be aware of? What strengths can you capitalize on? And what does that all mean? How can we make your business more transferable? It's probably hard to hear this, but I'll say it. A business that is not transferable is worthless. Think about that. You've worked so hard to grow your business and provide for your family and provide a legacy. And it would not be a good situation for anyone if you go to sell and you hear the words, your business is worthless. Some of you might know John Warlow. I interviewed him on my podcast, just released it. It's out now as an episode. And John Warlow is best known for being an author, a podcaster, And we talked about his early journey. And he said the first business he built, very successful. When he was going to sell it, he was told it's a worthless business, John. And that's what motivated him to then pivot and do the business that he has today, which is called the Value Builder System. So we'll talk about that in a moment. And the main thing here is that there are 8 core drivers to look at in any business. And understanding those core drivers and where your business is today, up or down versus your peers, is going to help you understand what you could be doing to increase value. So let's talk about the 8 drivers. These are the 8 drivers that the Value Builder System talks about. For me, as a certified Value Builder advisor, I think they make so much sense. And some of the concepts here might seem, something like you already know. And then some others you might say, oh, I hadn't quite thought of it that way. And that's what I look to do in working with clients, is help you see what you're not seeing yet today. So I'm going to walk through these 8 drivers at a really high level. I'm going to move fairly quickly. So if you do have questions, make sure to put them in chat and we'll address them at the end of the presentation today. The first one is financial performance. I like to start with this one. It's really the main one. Of course, it's about your financials, your profitability, your revenue. It's also the quality of your record keeping. If you're using QuickBooks, that's fine. There's no issue with that. If you're having audited financial statements and you can incur the cost, that's great too. But the point is to have very well organized, documented financials, so that when we're going to understand your history of profitability and also try to project forward, we're doing so from a clean slate. Also, in this metric, we are looking at the size of your company. The size of your company does matter when it comes to evaluating its value in the marketplace. There can be more value associated with larger companies. Why? Larger companies are perceived to have less risk. They have more history, and they have other factors, which we'll talk about in a moment, which makes the business more transferable, so that when the owner is no longer with the company, it doesn't fall short. It doesn't fall flat. So size matters, as well as your industry. You will see different multiples for different industries, and that's very, very common. The second value driver is growth potential. Quite simply, is there field left to plow? An example might be, if you are selling to the Fortune 500 and you have 498 of those 500 clients, wow, that's fantastic. But if someone's looking at your business for growth potential, they're going to say, oh, there's only 2 left to go get. What's the potential here? So take that to your business and thinking about your differentiation and your position in the marketplace. What market share do you have today? And is there potential for a new owner to really grow that business and capitalize? The third is called the Switzerland structure. Quite simply, this is about neutrality. How dependent is your business on any one or group of vendors, customers, and employees? Now, on the employee side, this could include you. Are you the most important person in that company? What happens if you're not there? What happens if you're sick? What happens if you take a vacation? Wow, what a concept. And so the Switzerland structure helps us look at your business from the standpoint of where you might have these hidden risks you haven't thought about. Another example, let's say you're a technology company or an e-commerce business and you've built a store on Facebook. And now Apple has really changed the dynamic with Meta, Facebook. And so if you've built an environment on Facebook that you can't control, that presents risk. Likewise, if you have customer concentration, one example could be, is any one customer more than 15% of your total revenue? That could present a risk. What happens if they are no longer part of your business model? The fourth one is the valuation teeter-totter. This is all about cash flow. How much working capital is needed to run your business? Do you need a line of credit? Is there seasonality to the business? If someone's taking it over, what kind of cash infusion do they need to put in to get started? In some companies with seasonality, it's very, very common. You might be incurring expenses before you're generating those revenues. And we might just need to take a look at what are some of your policies around who's running accounts receivable, who's managing that for you. Can we tighten up and reduce your days outstanding on your AR? And then how quickly or how long can we draw out your payments? And that's all the aspects of cash flow that we would take a look at in the business. And why is that important? Well, an acquirer is looking for predictability of future cash flow, which leads us to the fifth one, which is recurring revenue. If you're a member of Netflix or you have a Dunkin' Donuts coffee membership, this is recurring revenue. What does that mean? It's contracted. You've put in your credit card and they don't have to get permission from you to charge you every month. You've already given it. You have to withdraw from that subscription. So software companies that are like SaaS businesses are often valued on a revenue basis because of this predictability of future cash flow from recurring revenue model. Now, that's not to be confused with reoccurring with an O. Reoccurring means it might happen, you're not sure when, and very long-standing handshake relationships are awesome. However, there can be risk when that owner and that relationship is no longer part of the company on either side of that handshake. The next one is monopoly control. This is about differentiation. How much of a competitive moat, to quote Warren Buffett, have you created around your business? And the more differentiated you are, the more premium pricing you can charge, and other factors that go into goodwill, such as your brand and the quality of your customer list, et cetera, goes into this value driver. The seventh one is customer satisfaction. It's wonderful to have subscription model and recurring revenue, but if you're churning, you're losing customers on a pretty high rate, more than you're getting in. Think of the bathtub, the in and the out. Well, we have a problem there. How can we measure that? How can we be putting tripwires in so that we can be measuring? One way is a net promoter score. It's a quantitative view. Others use Google reviews. Others really look at Yelp. So what do your customers say about you? Your ability to drive referrals, really important. So as we not only look at your customer acquisition cost, your retention metrics, and also your lifetime value. And then last but not least is hub and spoke. This is the ability for your business to run with an infrastructure, processes, technologies without you. Again, can you take a vacation? When's the last time you took one? Are you working 70-hour work weeks and you don't really have the lifestyle or the health and wellness that you're looking for? Hub and spoke companies have an owner's trap. The owner is in the middle of everything. Your chief firefighter, problem solver, your customers are coming to you. And while you know their birthdays and you know everyone's name of their dogs of your customers, that's great. However, if you're the rainmaker, you're the number one person that's driving revenue in your company for more 20% or higher, that presents risk in the business. And again, a business that is not transferable is not going to have a lot of value. So what we do in working together as an exit value coach with our clients is we help you not only get your business ready and make you prepared from the business standpoint, we also work with you to make sure that you personally are prepared. And why is that important? Well, companies that have owners that are more prepared have more what we call pull factors, pulling you towards something as opposed to you feeling pushed out. Remember, we talked earlier about the positive and the negative. Well, companies, we've seen the data, companies that have more of a positive feeling, the owners are more positive about their next steps, are going to have a higher value. Why? Because we're part of it. We're part of the process to prepare. We've gathered trusted advisors around us to help us prepare. You've not built your business on your own. Why would you go to sell your company or transition your company on your own? You want to surround yourself with folks who have been in this space and can help advise you along the way. And if you're going to be building a more valuable company, part of that means having less stress, having the right people around you, and that's going to inherently create more value. And being prepared when that bluebird comes and they say, hey, I want to give you an offer for your company. I'm interested in buying your business. Can we talk? A company that's not prepared for that conversation is missing out. It's just like if your house is for sale. Some of us might want to sell our house one day and we're not really ready yet. But then there's somebody that comes along and puts a letter in our mailbox and now we're thinking about it. Well, that might happen to you or might already be happening to you. And so the main thing is in having this preparation around the business readiness, personal readiness, and your financials is so that when the time comes, we can minimize the change impact and make for a smooth transfer process. So we're going to talk about the exit value coaching process a little bit here. 3 core steps. The first one being identifying your core goals and your objectives. We spend time on this. Why? It's important for you to have that future vision. It's important for you to know what's motivating you and what your time horizon is. So what we talk about is what are the various exit options, and Paul's going to speak to this and more in a moment. But in general, there are various ways to exit or transfer your business. One way is to sell it to a third party. One way is to plan a succession, either and selling it to managers or to family. And so for the context of today's conversation, we're really going to be focused on selling to a third party. And so in this stage, we're talking about who potential owners might be. If they're competitors, if they're private equity or institutional funds that have raised money to go do a search and buy a business, potentially individuals. This is where we talk about the synergies. What will be some of the reasons that a competitor might benefit from buying your company and might be willing to pay a premium price? We will spend some time to understand the answer to the question, what is your business worth? We will do a market-based competitive analysis, get you comps to understand valuation multiples based on your industry, size of the business, and the risk factors that we identify in this assessment process. We'll understand if you have a gap. Let's say you've set a goal to have 10 million in your nest egg so that when you, in your phase of life, can look forward to your next thing. I won't call it retirement. It might be something else that you want to go do, start another company, etc. But we want to know if there's a gap. Are you short? You have a shortfall of 6 million, 5 million, or do you already have that nest egg potentially accomplished with the sale of this company? And we're going to talk about your time horizon. It's so important because if you've set an objective around a certain age, you have to know that it's going to take some time to get the business ready. It's going to take some time to put the business on the market, find the right buyer, close the deal and transact. And as Paul will talk about a little bit later, there might be some time after the close where you remain with the business to help with transition. So we look at the full picture of that time horizon. The second part of the coaching process is about maximizing value. Sounds easy, but it is not an easy process. And this takes a lot of work from you, especially, and the people that you're going to surround yourself on your team. We are going to dig in on the value drivers. We're going to focus on the biggest areas of risk in the business. We have to start there. If your business, especially with times around COVID, we've all faced a lot of different dynamics. This has not been an easy time. Some of us have pivoted really well. Some of us have implemented technologies that we're going to capitalize on in the future. Others have not, and you might be falling short versus your competition. We really have to understand what some of those dynamics are with your customers. When was the last time you've gotten together face-to-face with customers or over Zoom and enlisted some feedback about where you could be playing in the marketplace? And we're also going to dig in on all those value drivers I talked about earlier. Now, this is a monthly coaching process. We meet with you on a regular basis because if you go too long, then you lose touch. So this isn't about, hey, what'd you do yesterday? This is more about, these are the big things we're going to go work on, and let's set a plan forward to go work on these initiatives. So they might be growth strategies. There's two core areas of growth we can go after: organic growth and growth through acquisition. And it might be part of your plan, if you have enough time on that time horizon, to acquire other businesses. And we also do work on the buy side engagement to help with that, and also on the integration strategies. Pre-due diligence is so important. What does that mean? It really means at its core, gathering up all the information that a potential acquirer is going to want to know. And I see this now with my clients and preparing documents that we're going to talk about in a moment. When we bring you to market in a sell side engagement, we've got to have all of our ducks in a row. We have to be organized. And so pre-due diligence forces us to take a look at our customer list and understand, do we have a customer concentration issue? You know, what is our cash flow needs in the business? Where do we have risks, and have we addressed them? And then all the documentation that you probably haven't looked for in a long time, getting that organized and ready. And then reevaluating your value of the company, your value estimate on an annual basis. And then last step here, when you are ready for an exit, and in this context, again, talking about third party selling, we will prepare the business for a transaction. And we'll execute the plan. In a sell side engagement, of course, it starts with that valuation estimate. If we haven't already done that, we're going to do it here. Or if it's been a while, we're going to do it again. We have to understand where we're starting from to get a range of value. This is a private market. In a private market, The buyer is the one that's setting the price, and they're doing that based on the metrics of the business and the growth potential. And we want to look at the financials and get an understanding of that. We'll put it all together in what we call a confidential information memorandum. It's typically a 20 to 30 page document, pretty beefy, and potential buyers only get access to that after they've signed a non-disclosure. So this is our getting ready phase. We've got to now bring you to market, which is part of the marketing strategy. We talked earlier about potential buyers. We're looking at the landscape and canvassing and doing outreach and really beginning the momentum. And this is just the beginning. So executing the plan can take time, as I mentioned earlier. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. But again, this is a very collaborative and hands-on approach that we take with our clients to make sure that they can maximize their value. The selling process is critical. It's important to surround yourself with advisors on your team, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side. The intermediary, which is for Paul, myself, and our team at Stony Hill, we serve as intermediaries. And what does that mean? Well, it means that we are hired on one side or the other of that table. And of course, we're motivated to help you achieve your goals. We also recognize that there's sometimes polar differences. The buyer is trying to get the lowest price they can. The seller is trying to get the most. And we're motivated to help get the right deal. We want the right fit. We want the right deal. And so we can be really listening and using our experience to help in the negotiations, take the emotion out of it, and make sure we're getting the best deal possible that we can for you. There's a lot of things to be done. I'm sure you've gotten that sense from my discussion here today. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the things that we would put on the checklist for a business to be ready for sale. There's a difference between being sell ready and being ready for sale. There's a difference there. And these are some of the things that go into that. How do you measure up on all those different value drivers, the 8 different value drivers that I mentioned earlier? How do you compare versus your industry peers? What risk factors have you addressed? What have you done to minimize those risks so that we can be upfront about it with potential buyers so there's no surprises? Have we gotten all of our paperwork and financials and everything in order so that we can be communicating that from a pre-diligence standpoint and putting that into our marketing materials? What have we thought about in terms of a transition plan? And contingency plan is that's something, a whole other topic. But a transition plan is once the deal is done, who from our employee teams are helping us? Are they prepared and are they willing to go forward with a new employer? Those questions will come up. The financials of the business, again, the more buttoned up your financials are, the more confident the potential buyer will be in your numbers. Having all the documentation like customer contracts, vendor contracts, really will help the model as well.
Right. That was my mistake.
You're good.
Did you finish that slide or not?
I did.
Okay. Is this next stage?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll talk now about the different types of buyers we work with. And it's a process of targeting and identifying the most likely buyer. We don't exclude potential buyers because they come out of the woodwork. Sometimes we don't know who is going to be to make the best offer, but we can identify in advance the likely next buyer. And there are 2 main categories. In the market we serve, we primarily try to find a strategic buyer. And the reason for that is the offers are better usually because they have a strategic purpose. They have a synergy that they've identified. And they're buying the assets, but not the goodwill of the business, which is sometimes the things that are not that are difficult to identify, but they're not worried about that. They know what they want. They want the customers and they want the revenue, and that's what they're targeting. And sometimes there's underneath service features like the employee population. They may have some key employees, or you may have some intellectual property that they want to acquire, but they're not really buying the ongoing business in most cases. On the other side is the economic buyer or private equity buyer or some variation on that, where the they're looking for the best deal to buy an ongoing company. Um, and the idea of buying an ongoing business, they're going to be very careful because they're going to live off the ongoing business. They don't have any synergies. So they have to be able to repay whatever the source of funding for the business, whether it's a bank loan or their personal funds. They want to make sure that it's a good deal and that the cash flow supports the return on investment. So the process is to balance those two. Okay, next slide, Gordon. There we go. When we're representing a sell side client, we're always very aware of the offer and the deal terms included in the offer. An offer is not just, I'll pay you X dollars to buy your company. The terms mean a lot. And we guide our clients on what is a reasonable offer, including the terms. And we help them understand the nature of the variations within the offer, like earnouts and seller notes, and the value of the non-compete agreement, and what's reasonable and customary, what's required during transition. Are they going to hire you to continue to operate the business for X amount of time? And just as simple as what is the down payment and conditions around accessing things like being held back in escrow. Those are all factors that come into making a deal valuable for the seller. The interesting thing is, this is a general statistics in the M&A world. 1 in 5 businesses actually sell, and that's proven statistically. We don't find it to be true for us, and the reason is, in general terms, many people want more for their business than it's really worth, and that's why we have exit value coaching to help reduce that gap, which improves our close ratio dramatically. If a business is offered and the seller knows what it's worth, and we've gotten it ready, it'll get a better price, and therefore we've reduced that value gap. Other times it's the buyer finds issues. There are things that are hidden in the business that a business owner who's worked in the business for years, they accept the risk factors. A buyer comes in and starts identifying things that are not worth making an offer. There's just too many factors that come into bear. Everything from if you've been in the business for 30, 40 years and your key employees are with you for 30 or 40 years, that's a real risk that not only you leaving, but they may retire. There's also sometimes just not enough financing. In the last year or so, if you were selling a restaurant or any other business around serving people, there was no, the banks just ruled them out. They wouldn't lend money to acquire many restaurants because they didn't know when the pandemic would end. Oftentimes, is the seller client has cold feet. You have to think through, what am I going to do after I sell? When you've been running a business for many years, it is integral to your daily life. You think about it every day when you get up, and you're thinking about it when you're going to bed. So you have to be able to transition to another stage in your life. So that can short circuit a lot of sale transactions when the seller gets the cold feet. And then, as we just had happen in the last couple of years, economic recessions impact the market. Who knows if the capital gains tax increase, which was once threatened, comes back to life. Those are factors that really can impact whether a seller will take an offer. If after tax it's not worth it, they'll just keep working. So those are all contributors to the close ratio of 1 in 5. But again, we find if we go through the process properly and have our business, our seller prepared, we get a much better close ratio. So this is kind of a summary. you need to actively cause your exit to be successful. It's really up to you. And it's not, there's an old saying, but are you working in your business or on your business? If you want your transition to be successful, you have to work on it. You just can't let it happen and decide, I want to sell next Tuesday. If you haven't spent the time to prepare the business, you're asking for issues. So make the time today, so you'll have the options tomorrow. It's always better to be prepared. And those of you, you all have your own favorite football team. I'm not picking on the Green Bay Packers, but you need a quarterback. And that's important because even if you have other trusted advisors, an attorney, an accountant, a financial advisor, or whatever, consultant that comes in, we are professionals at helping people sell their companies and buy companies. We know the various intricacies, and we can advise all of the specialists to work together and make the best deal possible. So it's important to engage us as early as possible and use our services for the actual transaction that you have in mind. So, Laurie, you were going to talk about this, I think.
Yeah, we have a quick poll, another quick poll, I think, for the audience, if you want to launch that.
Correct. I almost forgot.
So last poll, we asked you about your timeline. This one's about valuation. The question is, do you know what your business is worth? And the choices are, I have a formal valuation, I have an idea more informally, talking with others or researching, I don't know, or not applicable. What are we seeing, Paul?
Well, we're seeing a lot of people have an idea, more formally talking from others. They don't have a formal valuation. They just, they're being influenced by others, is another way to say it. They don't.
Okay. Yeah, so that feeds into our next steps. We have a few recommendations for if companies, business owners that are interested in getting started. How do you get started? It seems like a very intimidating process. I can understand that. The first step is to get an exit assessment. And Paul and I can help you with this. There's a complimentary business assessment that we can do. It's an online survey. It's not painful, I guarantee it. And you'll get a report, and that's complimentary. And basically, from that report, you'll get an understanding of how ready are you to sell? How ready is your business to be sold? We'll look at it from various standpoints, the business readiness as well as the personal readiness. Those are both really, really important. And then as an option for folks like yourself that have attended this webinar, or if you're watching the video, this is still valid for you as well, is we're offering a 1-hour advisory session. So you'll get the report and we'll also go through it with you. We'll talk about some of the implications and make some recommendations of what you might focus on. And that's a special offer of $299 for us to do that with you. Another next step is to reach out to one of us. Paul's email is here, paul@stonyhilladvisors.com. You can reach me, Laurie@stonyhilladvisors.com. We encourage you to reach out and schedule that assessment and schedule your advisory call for us to go through the results with you. And we asked about valuation because we're teeing up our next webinar in our series. It is going to be May 10th. And the topic is valuation. What is your business worth? So if you've done the homework ahead of time, I think you'll get a lot out of that seminar, and we'll certainly have more opportunities to connect. We also have one more recommendation for other ways to continue your education. Surprise, surprise. It's the Succession Stories podcast. As I mentioned earlier in my introduction, I'm the host of this show. It comes out weekly. And Stony Hill Advisors is a sponsor of the show. Paul is one of my guests. He's been on before, but he's coming on again. That episode is releasing in 2 weeks on March 20th. So we encourage you to subscribe to the show wherever you listen and binge to your favorite shows. And it's available also on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me there, you'll get all the updates. And it's wherever you listen to your favorite shows. And so, Paul, I think our Q&A time is about to open, right?
Yes. definitely.
Okay, so if you have a question, and I see already some are coming in, you can use chat, or you could also use the Q&A feature here in Zoom. So we have a couple of questions.
I guess you can't see them, Laurie, right?
I can see them. Yep, I'll tee up the first one to you. So, okay, Paul, what's the typical timeline to get ready to sell a company?
There's no, typical. It's like hard to determine is one answer. It could take as little as 3 months or so because there is preparatory process of getting business just valued and getting a contract written. That takes sometimes 3 months thereabouts. And other times it can take much longer than a year because the buyers are just not liking your company because whatever reason. And so you can't really determine the exact amounts. I'll say between 3 months and a year.
Yeah, and I think one visual is it depends where you're starting from, right? Are you looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger getting out of the gym, or are you looking like someone from the television show, My 1,000-Pound Life? So it really depends on your starting point. All right, another question that has come in is, and I can answer this as well as you, Paul, but I'll take a stab at it. The question is, tell us about your front end marketing team, the team members who find potential buyers. So this is really a question about our process. Yeah, I mean, it's folks like myself who are working on the sell side engagement, such as this is asking about, doing the research. So for me and my process, I'm using different databases. I'm using different mechanisms to research the marketplace for different types of buyers. If they are a private equity buyer, I'm looking at what other types of deals they may have done. And we have a database of financial buyers that we turn to, and we have some existing relationships. If it's a more of a strategic buyer, that's in concert and working with our client to understand who they think might be initial targets, coming up with that list, prioritizing based on different criteria. And then we do the anonymous outreach on their behalf. So I hope that answers your question. Paul, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I was looking at some of the other questions. So no, that's fine. That's a good answer.
Okay. Paul, this is a question for you. Is the same level of preparation recommended for a minority investment versus complete sale of a company?
The answer is yes, because anyone's going to spend money investing in your company. You have to have it ready, and they have to understand what is the value of that investment, whether it's 20% or 49%. I will say that minority investments are typically rare in a privately held company because anyone investing wants to have control. So you can more likely see a 51% and you can still be part owner, but the investors want to protect their interests. So that's more often than not the case, but you still have to make your business ready.
Okay. We have a couple of questions that have come in about different sectors that we represent. For example, people are asking if we've worked in insurance, property and casualty insurance market. There's a question on professional services. There's a question on healthcare. Why don't you go ahead on that one?
Yeah. Well, we work in all sectors. Across the group, I mentioned at the beginning, there's 7 of us currently, and everybody has different background and kind of a specialty. I came out of the telecom industry. I have a lot of knowledge there. I also worked in mortgage world, so I understand that industry. Laurie, you can talk about what your background is quite diversified and you have many skills. One of Fred Kaplan on our team has a specialty in food and beverage. Larry Silver has his background in the construction industry for many, many years. So we have lots of industries we have specific knowledge in from our careers, but we also work, I'll say it this way, selling a company is the same process no matter the industry. We'll never know as much as you, the owner, seller, and never know as much as the buyer will need to know. So our job as an intermediary is to do the connecting, but not be the expert.
There's, let's see, some other questions have come in about how we price our services and the fee structure to sell a business?
Well, basically, it's a success fee, and that we're paid at closing, and it can vary based on the size of the company, but it's really specifically defined by working together to establish an engagement agreement that makes sense.
And Fred Kaplan, so shout out to Fred, just sold a professional services company in February. He put that in the chat in case you hadn't seen that. So a question has come in. We work in all sectors. Can we share what the average multiple price is for the clients we represent?
Well, it'll vary on the low end. A small company, I'll call it Main Street. We've done that in the past. It'll be 2 times your cash flow, just raw cash flow. That's called seller's discretionary earnings. And a company is doing, let's say, 20 million in revenue, could be 6 or 7 times the earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. So it really varies. The bigger the company, the better the multiple. The amount of recurring revenue, the better the multiple. The certain industries, the better the multiple, et cetera. Location sometimes impacts that. How ready it is impacts that. So there is no one number. It varies dramatically.
So let's see, I'm looking here to see if there's any others. We had a couple others here. What do business owners face if they go to sell the business on their own? What are some challenges they might encounter?
I know some people understand the for sale by owner and the housing market. That's quite, let's say, it's more easily done because someone can look at the house, they can see the size of the property, they can look at the tax rolls, they can see the condition of the roof and the carpeting and the kitchen and so on. Those are all observable. In a business, most of it's the financials and the so many intangibles. So if you're trying to sell it by yourself, you're really asking for an issue with, how do I represent it correctly? How does the buyer really know what my business is really worth? And then the process isn't as regulated as the housing market with real estate laws. Most of the transactions are private transactions that are defined by the 2 attorneys on the doing the deal. There's no guideline regulation on what must be included, and sometimes you don't have the proper advice. You can have a deal closed where you didn't realize what you just gave away.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, there's one that's just come in. Can we briefly touch on what a buy-side engagement with Stony Hill looks like as far as seeking strategic acquisitions to grow a company for eventual sale?
That's a great question, because not all M&A advisors do the buy side. There are some people who specialize in doing buy side, and most of those are generated toward private equity looking for a platform, so to speak. Our buy side engagements are mostly for growth purposes of an existing client, somebody who we're working with to help them prepare for exit, and we define the fact that they could make some acquisitions of relatively small in size, and typically that helps them get their business bigger, diversifies their company, it gives them some additional cash flow. And the fact is, when you buy a company that's making money, the profit of that company pays for the loan you took to buy them. So it's almost self-fulfilling that the transaction can be very, very rewarding. So our buy sides are most of the time are pretty straightforward. We understand what the nature of the client is looking for, and we search the marketplace to find it, under the concept of, when we talk to another business owner, we can actually say to them, I have someone interested in buying your business. I'm not just pitching, let me sell your company. I'm coming to you with a buyer.
Yeah, it's really a powerful message. And it's, I think ethically really important. We only say that if it's true. There might be other firms who might say that, and if it's not true, just to try to open a door, but we only say it if we have that buyer engagement. And from small companies to private equity firms, we have those relationships where you're looking to do, a PE firm that wants to do a tuck-in, or they might want to have an anchor platform. We're able to do that on their behalf if we have those deals in our network. For a company that wants to grow through acquisition, it's really effective to augment your team with folks like us, because we can. Otherwise, you're going to be hiring corp dev types of team members, and we can be an extension and kind of creating a corp dev process for you. And I've talked to one company as an example. One of the things I said to them is I didn't think they were ready for our type of work, because you really need to be thinking about integration. As soon as you're talking about acquiring, you need to be thinking about integration. And so for folks like myself who have a corporate background and understand what that means, I've been through it myself. We can also provide a lot of value, not only in finding the right opportunity, but making sure it's the right fit end to end so that it doesn't fail. You've invested all that time and money. You don't want it to fail. We have time for one more question, I think. We have one here. This is a small public transit supplier and believes that they represent greater value if they're acquired by one of their competitors. What risks of disclosure do they face if they share that desire to exit the business, or how can they mitigate competitive issues once their identity is disclosed?
That's a long question.
I know, it's a good question. It gets into the challenge of, who knows about it. And so especially if there's a competitive situation, I'm representing a client now where they believe that their best fit is a competitor to buy them. And the seller understands the risks that he's taking in sharing in the SIM, that document that I mentioned earlier, this confidential information. And yeah, so it's a good question. Paul, what are your thoughts?
I mean, we take it very seriously. Everything we do is on a confidential basis. When we talk to a potential client, we'll send them a confidentiality agreement immediately after that first conversation to make them comfortable that no matter what we heard in that very first call, we will hold that in confidence as well. Then as we reach out to potential buyers, we have, I think, a reasonably tight NDA written by my attorney that it protects the information that the potential buyer is receiving. Now, obviously, they can avoid that and become, not what's the word? They don't respect the agreement they're signing. But we're talking to business owners, and they're usually very honest, and so we've never had a violation of our NDA. So I can say that after 12 years now. So I'm pretty confident that the information we send out is also having confidence. And then finally, in the actual negotiation, when you're really exposing your company to the buyer, they're seriously invested at that point. So they're not trying to blow the deal away by divulging the confidence that they've agreed to in the NDA.
Well, Paul, it's 1 o'clock. I want to thank everyone for joining us. This video will be available on demand. We really appreciate your time today, and we hope that you'll follow us with our next webinars and tune in to all the resources we have available for you. Reach out to Paul and me for your exit value assessment. We look forward to speaking with you.
Thank you.